Close your eyes for a moment. Just listen, not to my voice, but to the space around it. The hum of the world outside your window, or the perfect, profound silence within these walls. We are so accustomed to the soundtrack of our own lives, the pings, the alerts, the endless scroll of another's thoughts, that we've forgotten what it means to truly listen to the absence of sound. We've forgotten that in that absence, something else entirely speaks. Tonight, let's wander away from the glow of those screens. Let's follow the faint, flickering light of a different kind of thought, down a quieter corridor, to the work of a man named Byung-Chul Han. He is not a guide who shouts directions. He is a companion who points with a quiet hand toward the shadows we've been taught to avoid, and asks us if we are truly sure we know what we're looking at. Chapter 1. What if the noise of the world is just a cage we polished ourselves? Think of the last time you felt a moment of pure, unclaimed silence. Not the silence you schedule for 5 minutes of meditation, but the kind that arrives unannounced. The pause between songs on a record. The deep, woolen quiet of a heavy snowfall. The hollow in the chest after you hang up the phone. How did it feel? For so many of us, it's not peace that rushes in. It's a low-grade anxiety, a subtle itch, an impulse to reach for the phone, to turn on the television, to generate some signal, any signal, to prove we are still here, that we are not missing out. We think of freedom as the ability to speak, to be heard, to connect, to consume information. We have built cathedrals to this freedom. Social media platforms, 24-hour news cycles, podcasts and audiobooks that fill every spare second of our commute, our workout, our morning routine. We have mistaken access for liberty. But what if this constant self-generated noise is the very thing that imprisons us? Byung-Chul Han suggests that the old, familiar cages of power, the ones with visible bars, with guards and rules shouted from the outside, have largely vanished. They have been replaced by something far more clever, far more insidious. A cage we built ourselves. A cage we polish every single day, believing we are decorating our freedom. We are no longer disciplined from the outside. We performance manage our own souls. We are the prisoner, the guard, and the warden, all in one. We feel a compulsion to share, to opine, to document our every meal, our every triumph, our every passing irritation. We must be seen to exist. And in this desperate need to be perceived, we surrender the one thing that truly belongs to us, our interiority, our private, unoptimized self, the self that is allowed to be contradictory, messy, uncertain, and, most damning of all in our age, unproductive. There is a beautiful, haunting Japanese concept, yugen. It points to a profound, mysterious awareness of the universe that triggers feelings too deep and powerful for words. It's the feeling you get gazing into the fog-shrouded depths of a forest, knowing there is immense life and history there you cannot see. It's the feeling of watching a lone bird disappear into a bank of distant clouds. It's the awe of the hidden, the unspoken, the unseen. This feeling cannot thrive in the glare of the constant broadcast. It withers under the spotlight of total disclosure. It requires shadow. It requires silence. It requires a self that is not constantly presented for public consumption. When we lose our capacity for silence, we lose our capacity for depth. We trade the rich, dark soil of a private inner world for the glossy, sterile surface of a timeline. We are so busy narrating our lives that we forget to live them. We are so busy capturing the moment that we are never truly in it. The noise, then, is the sound of the cage door we are so diligently locking behind us. And the tragedy is, we crafted the key with our own hands, believing it was a tool of our liberation. The first step to quieting the world is to recognize that the loudest prison is the one we learned to build within our own minds. There is a stillness that comes after such a realization, not an empty stillness, but a fertile one. It's the quiet of a deep forest, where the light falls in dappled patterns, and you become aware of every rustle of life just beyond sight. It's in this quiet that a second, more unsettling question begins to form, not as a shout, but as a whisper from the shadows. A whisper about the very nature of the choices we believe define our freedom. Chapter 2. Is your freedom to choose actually a much gentler and more dangerous form of control? We wear our choices like armor. The brand of coffee we brew in the morning, the podcast we select, the political party we endorse, the endless array of products, of identities, of lifestyles presented to us. This is the marketplace of the self, and we are its most diligent shoppers, believing that with every selection, we are carving out our uniqueness, asserting our individuality. It feels like power. It feels like agency. But what if this entire panorama of choice is the most sophisticated mechanism of control ever devised? The old power, the kind our fathers and grandfathers knew, said no. It was a power of prohibition. Thou shalt not. Its boundaries were clear, its oppression visible. You could rebel against a no. You could see the wall you were throwing yourself against. The new power, the power of our time, does not prohibit. It seduces. It does not say no. It offers an endless, dizzying, exhausting chorus of yes. Yes, you can be this. Yes, you can have that. Yes, you can choose from 40 different kinds of artisanal toothpaste, each promising a slightly different version of a perfect, gleaming self. This is what Han calls the achievement society. We are not forced into obedience. We are encouraged into performance. We are driven by the internalized imperative to always be optimizing, enhancing, and upgrading ourselves, to choose the best, to be the best. The whip of the overseer has been replaced by the obsessive self-calculation of the entrepreneur, of the self. We exploit ourselves, believing we are fulfilling ourselves. We live under the tyranny of positivity. We must be happy. We must be fit. We must be successful. We must be connected. To fail at this is not to break a rule. It is to be a failure. It is a personal, moral shortcoming. And so, we run. We run on the hamster wheel of choice and optimization, mistaking the motion for progress. We are free to choose anything we want, as long as we never question the cage of choices we've been given. We are free to be whoever we want, as long as it's a version of a self that is productive, consumptive, and visible within the system. This is a control that feels like freedom. It is a control that gets us to police ourselves. It is a control that disguises itself as liberation. It is far more effective than any tyranny of no could ever be, because we defend it. We champion it. We believe it is the very essence of our modern identity. True freedom, then, might not look like making more choices from a pre-selected menu. It might look like the radical courage to step away from the menu altogether. It might be the will to not choose, to be ambiguous, to be undefined by the categories offered, to embrace a certain kind of irrelevance to the frantic churn of the market. It is the freedom to be simply, without having to prove your being, through a constant stream of consumptive acts. It is the freedom to say, this is not for me. Not out of rebellion, but out of a deep, quiet knowing that the most valuable things in life were never options on a list to begin with. And so, we find ourselves at the edge of the marketplace, turning our back on its dazzling lights and constant murmur. We walk into an older, darker wood. The air changes here. It's cooler. The sounds of the world fade, replaced by the sound of your own breath, your own footsteps. And here, in this deeper solitude, the final and most personal question awaits, not with a demand, but with an invitation, to consider a power we have long been taught to fear. Chapter 3. In a world that demands we shine, could the truest power lie in the courage to disappear? We are taught to be seen, to make an impact, to leave a mark. Our value is measured in our visibility, our followers, our influence, our legacy. To be overlooked, to be forgotten, to be quiet. These are the modern definitions of failure. We are terrified of the void, of the empty page, of the silence on the other end of the phone. We fill it with anything, everything, just to feel the confirmation of our own existence reflected back at us. But what if we have it backwards? What if the most profound strength, the most authentic form of resistance, is not in the brilliant burning flare of the self, but in the conscious, deliberate, and courageous decision to withdraw, to disappear, not in failure, but in mastery? This is not the disappearance of despair. It is not hiding. It is the strategic, thoughtful cultivation of the hidden. The painter who knows the power of negative space. The musician who understands the potency of the rest between the notes. The warrior who knows that true strength is not always in the flash of the blade, but in the stillness that precedes it. Byung-Chul Han calls this the art of the pensive. It is a state of deep, contemplative withdrawal from the frenzy of positivity and communication. It is a form of presence that does not need to announce itself. Think of the deepest, most meaningful connections in your life. The friend you can sit with for an hour in perfect, comfortable silence. The love that is communicated not with grand gestures, but with a shared glance across a room. That depth is only possible when the noisy, performing self recedes. It creates a space for something more real, more nuanced, more true to emerge. This is the power of the negative, the power of what is not said, what is not shown, what is not consumed. To practice this art is to reclaim your soul from the marketplace. It is to build a hidden garden within yourself that no algorithm can reach, no trend can touch. It is where you can be weak without judgment, uncertain without panic, and contemplative without the pressure to produce an insight. It is the chamber where your true, unoptimized self resides. In a world that screams for your attention, the most radical thing you can do is to withhold it, to turn it inward, to tend to that quiet, inner flame. This is the ultimate lesson waiting for us in the quiet. The world of constant stimulation and performance is not a paradise we've lost. It is a distraction we've built. The real journey, the sacred journey, is the one that leads you back into your own silence, back into your own solitude. It is there that you will find not loneliness, but a profound connection to everything that truly matters. It is there that you remember that you are not a brand to be managed, but a soul to be understood, a mystery to be lived. So let the world shine. Your power lies in the courage to turn away from its glare, to step into the gentle, forgiving dark, and to discover at last the profound peace of your own unobserved, and therefore truly free existence. Now, just listen to the silence again. It's different now, isn't it? It's not empty. It's full. It's not a void. It's a home. Let that feeling carry you now. Let go of the day. Let go of the need to be anything other than exactly what you are, right here, in the quiet dark, and sleep. Chapter 4. What if the most radical act left to us is the courage to be inefficient? Close your eyes for a moment and just listen. Not to my voice, but to the space around it. The hum you've been tuning out, the faint pressure of a screen against your thumb, the endless, silent scroll of a to-do list in the back of your mind. We live in a world that worships at the altar of efficiency, a world that measures the worth of a moment by what it produces. The answer to a question must be immediate. A journey must be the fastest route. Even our rest must be optimized, tracked by a watch, measured in REM cycles, turned into data to improve tomorrow's performance. But what if I were to tell you that the very thing we've been taught to chase, this gleaming god of efficiency, is the very thing that is quietly sanding down the edges of our souls? What if the most profound, the most rebellious, the most truly human thing you could do today is to waste time, not lazily, not apathetically, but with a fierce and deliberate intention, to be gloriously, poetically inefficient. Think of it not as stopping, but as deepening, as making a groove deeper rather than scratching another surface. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han offers us a lantern in this darkness. He speaks of a society that has moved from the age of discipline, should not, into the age of achievement. Yes, you can. It sounds like freedom, doesn't it? It rings of empowerment. But lean in closer. Listen to the whisper beneath the roar. This yes you can has a hidden, sharper edge. It doesn't command you, it seduces you. It persuades you that you are the master of your own destiny, the CEO of Me Inc. And so, you must optimize yourself. You must leverage your skills. You must network. You must perform. You must grow. You are both the prisoner and the warden, the hammer and the nail. You polish the bars of your own cage, convinced you are building a skyscraper. And the greatest trick this new power ever pulled was to make you believe you were never freer. This is the violence of positivity. It is a sun that never sets, blinding us to the beauty and necessity of shadow. It forbids us the dignity of failure, the grace of stillness, the profundity of a task that leads nowhere but to itself. We have forgotten the art of the gesture that has no purpose beyond its own beauty. The hand that rests on a windowsill, not to open the window, but just to feel the grain of the wood and the chill of the glass. The walk that is not for steps counted, but for the scent of rain on hot concrete. The conversation that meanders like an old river, with no destination in mind. These are not inefficiencies. They are acts of quiet resistance. They are the deep breaths of a soul that refuses to hyperventilate along with the pace of the world. Imagine, centuries ago, a swordsman in the mist of Japan, Miyamoto Musashi. We remember him for his victories, for his 61 duels undefeated. But we forget his inefficiencies. We forget the years he spent wandering, alone, with no master to serve, no dojo to uphold, no title to defend. He was not optimizing his path to fame. He was deepening it. He was practicing an art that was, in its essence, a form of profound attention. To draw a sword efficiently is to win a duel. But to be with the sword, to understand its weight, its balance, the way light runs down its edge like water, that is something else entirely. That is a conversation. It is an act of relationship with the world. He wasn't just learning to kill. He was learning to see the way a bird takes flight from a branch, and understand the subtle shift in the air that preceded it. He was wasting time, gloriously, and in doing so, he found a depth of skill that efficiency could never, ever produce. This is the courage to be inefficient. It is to reclaim your time as your own, not as a resource to be spent, but as a soil to be tended. It is to read a book without the goal of finishing it, to cook a meal that takes all afternoon for no one but yourself, to sit with a feeling of sadness without immediately reaching for the phone to numb it, to solve it, to make it productive. This is where the soul gets its texture, in the gaps, in the pauses between the notes. That is where the music truly lives. To refuse this is to live a life of pure surface, a shimmering, frantic, lonely highway with no depth, no meaning, no home. But to embrace it is to step off the highway entirely, to find a footpath worn by deer, to hear the rustle of something older, quieter, and far more real. It is to remember that you are a human being, not a human doing. And that is a revolution the world cannot quantify, and therefore can never control. And as we step off that frantic highway, as the noise of achievement fades to a distant hum, we are met with a new quality of silence. It can feel vast. It can feel empty. But is it? Or is what we perceive as a void actually the one thing we've been desperately searching for all along? Chapter 5. Could the emptiness you feel actually be a doorway, waiting to be opened? That feeling, the one that sometimes arrives in the quiet of the evening or in the pause between one task and the next. It descends not like a storm, but like a fog, a sense of absence, a hollow space within the rhythm of your days. We have been taught to fear this feeling, to name it loneliness, alienation, depression, to see it as a malfunction, a problem to be solved. We reach for the phone, we turn on the television, we schedule another meeting. We fill the cup because we cannot bear the sight of it being empty. But what if we have it all backwards? What if this emptiness is not a wound, but an invitation? A sacred space that is not asking to be filled, but to be felt, to be entered. Could it be that the very void we spend our lives running from is, in fact, the only doorway that leads back to ourselves? Byung-Chul Han draws a delicate but crucial distinction for us. He speaks of the negative and the positive. The world of today, he suggests, is a world of rampant positivity, a world without negation, without otherness, without the sacred no. Everything must be connected, communicated, shared, liked. There is no outside. There is no silence. There is only more information, more stimulation, more content. We are surrounded by a digital mirror that reflects a version of ourselves back to us, constantly, in an endless feedback loop of sameness. And in this world of total gleaming positivity, something vital withers. The capacity for true experience, for true connection. Because real connection, real experience, requires a gap. It requires a space between you and the other. It requires the ability to say no, to hold a boundary, to be separate. Without the negative, without the silence, without the empty space, everything just bleeds together into a monotonous, exhausting smear of more. This is why the feeling of emptiness arrives. It is not a breakdown, it is a rebellion. It is your soul's immune system kicking in, rejecting the constant oppressive presence of the same. It is creating a negative space within you because the world outside refuses to provide one. This emptiness is not nothingness. It is potential. It is the blank page before the poem is written. It is the silence in the concert hall before the first note is played. It is the fertile dark of the soil before the seed splits open. We confuse it for loneliness because we have forgotten how to be alone. True loneliness is a poverty of connection. But this sacred emptiness, this is a richness of space. It is the chamber within you where you can finally hear your own thoughts, where the echoes of who you really are can bounce off the walls and return to you, changed. Think of Musashi again, in his later years. He did not retire to a palace surrounded by admirers. He went into deeper seclusion. He built a hermitage. He entered the emptiness voluntarily. He wasn't running from the world. He was running towards the clarity that only absolute space can provide. In that void, without the noise of society's expectations, he could finally hear the subtle language of the world, the way the wind spoke through the pines, the lessons written in the flow of water. His greatest work, the Book of Five Rings, was not born from a crowded room of debate, but from the profound and willing embrace of solitude. He understood. The empty hand is not a weak hand. It is the hand ready to hold anything. The empty mind is not a stupid mind. It is the mind ready to truly see. So when you feel that hollow space opening up inside you, do not rush to plaster it over with noise. Do not fear it. Lean into it. Ask it what it wants. It does not want to be filled. It wants to be explored. It is the most private room in the house of your spirit. It is where you go to meet yourself, away from the performance, away from the crowd. It is the doorway. The question is, do you have the courage to step through it, to find out what, or who, has been waiting for you there all along? And on the other side of that doorway, we might just rediscover something we thought was lost to the relentless forward march of progress. Something final, something sacred, something that gives all our connections, and even our solitude, its deepest meaning. Chapter 6. Is the digital world erasing the art of the truly human farewell? There is a particular weight to a handshake that lasts a moment too long, a specific gravity to the closing of a door after a guest has left, and the silence that settles in their wake. There is a ritual in a final look, a last wave from a train window as it pulls away from the platform, until the figure is swallowed by distance. These are the textures of farewell, and they are becoming foreign to us. In a world of constant connection, of perpetual availability, have we lost the capacity to truly end anything, to truly say goodbye? Our conversations don't end. They are merely abandoned, left open-ended in a messaging thread. Our relationships don't conclude. They just slowly fade, their edges blurred by the occasional like on a social media post. We live in a state of infinite continuity, and Byung-Chul Han would suggest that in doing so, we are losing something essential to the human experience, the dignity of an ending. The digital sphere is a realm of the undead, not in a monstrous sense, but in a literal one. Nothing truly dies there. A photo from 10 years ago can surface with a casual scroll. A forgotten comment can be resurrected. An old flame is perpetually present, just a click away, frozen in time, never allowing for the natural decay of memory or the healing that comes with a clean break. This is the opposite of the negative space we spoke of. This is a suffocating positivity of presence. Everyone is always here. And if everyone is always here, then no one is ever truly gone. And if no one is ever gone, then we never have to truly feel their absence. We never have to practice the art of letting go. But here is the secret we are avoiding. It is the ending that gives the story its meaning. It is the finality of death that gives life its precious, heartbreaking urgency. It is the closed door that makes the room feel contained, safe, intimate, A song that never ends is just noise. A conversation that never concludes is just chatter. A relationship that never risks a true farewell can never achieve the depth of one that does. The ending is the frame around the picture. Without it, the colors just bleed off into infinity, losing their shape and their significance. We are denying ourselves the catharsis of closure. We are living in a novel with no final chapter, and it is making the entire story feel weightless and vague. This is why we feel so unmoored. This is why a sense of grief can linger for years, in a low, unresolved hum. We are surrounded by ghosts we ourselves keep alive. We have traded the clean, painful cut of a farewell for the slow, festering wound of something that is never quite over. We have forgotten how to bury our dead, digitally speaking. We have forgotten the ritual. The ritual is what allows us to metabolize loss. The wake, the funeral, the sharing of stories, the final handshake. These are acts that carve a space around a loss, that contain it, that give it a shape we can eventually learn to live alongside. The digital world, in its relentless, cheerful positivity, denies us these rituals. It offers us amnesia instead of mourning, distraction instead of depth. To be human is to be a creature of time, and time, by its very nature, entails loss, entails change, entails ending. To try to live outside of time, in the eternal present of the digital feed, is to make ourselves less than human. It is to fear the very conditions of our own existence. The truest power may lie in our willingness to say a full and complete goodbye, to let a thread be tied off, to archive a conversation, not just pause it, to sometimes choose to not look, to let a memory be a memory, not a live feed. This is not cold. It is the ultimate act of respect for the past, for the relationship, and for your own present. It is the courage to accept the negative, the no, the end. It is how we make room for a new beginning. It is how we honor what was by allowing it to be complete. And in that completion, we find a peace that perpetual connection can never, ever provide. So let the silence settle now. Let the ideas drift like leaves on a still pond. There is no test. There is no action item. There is only the invitation to feel the world a little differently tomorrow, to hear the hum not as a demand, but as a choice, to see the empty moment not as a void, but as a chamber, to feel the end of something not as a failure, but as a form of grace. Rest now. The night is deep, and the world can wait. Chapter 7. What if the most forbidden desire? Left to us is the desire for true boredom. There is a silence so deep, it feels like a secret. It's the silence that exists not in a place, but in a state of being, a state we have been taught to flee from, to medicate against, to fill with any sound, any flicker of light, any notification, anything but its own profound emptiness. I want to talk to you tonight about that emptiness, and I want to suggest something that might feel, at first, like a kind of heresy. What if the very thing we spend our lives running from, that gnawing sense of stillness, that pause in the machinery of our days, is not a void to be filled, but the most fertile ground we will ever know? What if the most forbidden desire left to us in this carnival of constant stimulation is the simple, aching desire for true boredom? Think about that word for a moment. Boredom. It feels almost childish, doesn't it? A complaint, a lack. We have built an entire economy on its eradication. Our pockets hold devices that are panic buttons against it. The scroll, the stream, the endless feed. They are all weapons in a war against a single moment of unfilled time. We have become so efficient at banishing boredom that we have forgotten what it was for. We have polished it out of our lives like a flaw in the marble, never stopping to consider that the flaw might have been the very thing that gave the stone its character, its unique signature. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han watches this, I think, with a kind of quiet, sorrowful clarity. He sees that we are not prisoners of a loud, punishing system from the outside. We are the jailers. We polish the bars ourselves, believing we are merely cleaning the windows of our freedom. But what happens to a soul that never knows boredom? What is lost when we never allow ourselves to simply stare at a wall, to watch a single cloud make its slow, meaningless journey across a vast and indifferent sky? We lose the space for reverie, for the mind to wander without a destination handed to it by an algorithm. This is not the passive boredom of waiting in a line, phone in hand, numbing the seconds. This is active boredom, profound boredom, the kind that descends on you when you are utterly, completely, inescapably left with only yourself. It is deeply uncomfortable. It itches. It makes you fidget. It brings up all the things you've been avoiding, the unresolved argument, the nagging doubt about your path, the quiet grief for something you can't even name. This is why we run. It is painful. But it is in that very pain that the possibility of something new is born. It is in the unprogrammed silence that a new thought, a truly your thought, can finally whisper. It's like a field left fallow. Modernity demands that every field be productive, every moment yield a crop of attention, a harvest of data. But a field that is never allowed to rest becomes depleted, dusty. It can only grow what it is told to grow. True boredom is that fallow season. It is the rest the earth takes to remember its own wild potential, to dream of weeds and wildflowers it has forgotten. When you allow yourself to be bored, you are not being unproductive. You are engaging in the deepest form of productivity, the cultivation of your inner world. You are allowing the soil of your mind to settle, so that whatever grows next will be deep-rooted and strong, not just another shallow shoot designed for a quick harvest. Imagine a man like Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary swordsman. We picture his battles, his intense focus. But what of the spaces between? The long, lonely walks between villages. The nights spent under a cold sky, with no company but the crackle of his own fire and the weight of his own thoughts. There was no podcast to listen to, no messages to check. Just the wind and the miles, and the interior monologue of a man refining his spirit. That is profound boredom. It was in those empty, unproductive hours that his philosophy was forged. His art was not just born in the clash of swords, but in the silence that followed, in the ability to sit with a single thought, a single technique, and turn it over and over in his mind until it revealed every hidden facet. He wasn't avoiding emptiness. He was conversing with it. He understood that the void is not nothingness. It is potential. It is the blank page before the poem, the silence before the note. We have traded that deep, generative emptiness for a shallow, frantic fullness. We are never alone. We are surrounded by a digital crowd, a cacophony of voices and opinions and demands. But this hyper-connection creates a deeper, more profound loneliness, the loneliness of never being truly heard, because you are never truly listening to yourself. The world tells you to optimize yourself, to be efficient, to never waste a moment. But what is more inefficient, more gloriously human, than to waste an afternoon lost in thought, to gaze out a window without a purpose, to put down the tool and just feel the weight of your own hand. This is the quiet rebellion. To desire boredom is to desire yourself. It is to declare that your worth is not measured in clicks, in completed tasks, in constant visibility. It is an act of reclaiming your own attention, the most precious resource you have, from a world that seeks to monetize every last second of it. It is to say, this moment is mine, it is empty, it is beautiful, and I will inhabit it fully. The next time you feel that itch, that urge to reach for the device to fill the silence, pause, just for a breath, and ask yourself, what is waiting for me in the quiet if I am brave enough to meet it? The answer might just be the person you were before the world started telling you who to be. And so we see that in the embrace of the empty moment, we find not nothing, but a deeper something, a self that exists beneath the noise. But this leads us to a quieter, more haunting question. If we manage to find that silence, and we listen closely, what do we hear? Is it just the echo of our own thoughts? Or is it something else, something older? A whisper that has been trying to reach us all along. Chapter 8. Could the echo of an unanswered question be the sound of your own soul? Silence is not just an absence. It is a presence. It has a texture, a weight. And in the depth of that quiet, after you've turned off the screens and let the frantic hum of the world fade to a distant memory, something begins to emerge. It's not a sound you hear with your ears, but a resonance you feel in your bones. It's the echo of a question, not a question you ask out loud, but one that seems to have been living within you, waiting for the noise to die down so it can finally be heard. It's the question you've been avoiding with all that noise, the one about the path you didn't take, the love you let go, the person you thought you'd become. Could it be that this echo, this persistent, unanswered call from the depths of your own life, is not a problem to be solved, but the very sound of your own soul, trying to orient itself in the world? We are so conditioned to seek answers. We treat life like a puzzle to be solved, a code to be cracked. We Google our uncertainties. We seek experts for our dilemmas. We want closure, resolution, a final grade on the test of our choices. But the deepest matters of a human life are not puzzles. They are mysteries. And a mystery is not something to be solved. It is something to be lived, to be inhabited. An unanswered question is not a failure. It is a companion. It is the North Star you navigate by, even though you may never reach it. Byung-Chul Han points to the violence of our society of positivity, a society that cannot tolerate the negative space, the unanswered question, the unresolved chord. It demands everything be smoothed over, optimized, made efficient and clear. But a life without negative space is just noise. A painting without contrast is just a flat, blank wall. Your soul speaks in the language of the negative, in the gap between what is and what could be, in the sorrow that has no single source, in the longing for a home you can't quite describe. This is the echo. It is the sound of your own depth. To try and answer it with a quick fix, a new purchase, a change of job, another scroll through a feed, is to pour concrete into a sacred well. You silence the echo, yes, but you also seal off the source of your deepest water. The echo is not meant to be answered. It is meant to be listened to. It is meant to be followed. It is the thread that leads you back to yourself. Think of the old stories, the myths. The hero is never given a map. He is given a riddle, a cryptic phrase from an oracle, a dream he cannot understand. The journey is the process of living that question, of allowing it to transform him until he understands its meaning not intellectually, but viscerally, in his very blood and bone. Our modern world has tried to abolish the riddle. It offers us GPS instead of a starry sky. It offers us life hacks instead of wisdom. It offers us certainty instead of meaning. But certainty is a cage. Meaning is found in the pursuit, in the beautiful, painful, glorious uncertainty of the search. Your unanswered question is your personal riddle. It is the thing that makes your life uniquely yours. There is a certain kind of loneliness that comes from this. A loneliness not about the absence of other people, but about the presence of this unshareable, intimate mystery within you. You can try to explain it to someone else, but the words always fall short. It's like trying to describe the taste of water. This loneliness is not something to be cured. It is to be honored. It is the proof of your interiority, the proof that you have an inner world that is vast and complex and cannot be fully translated. The digital world sells us on connection, but it offers only a frictionless, surface-level transmission of data. It is terrified of this deep, abiding loneliness because it cannot be quantified, cannot be turned into a metric. It is the last truly private place. Imagine a man standing on a cliff edge, looking out at a sea shrouded in mist. He doesn't know what's out there. The map ends here. The answer isn't in a book. The only thing he has is the question itself, burning in his chest. What is out there? That question, that H of not knowing, is what makes him feel most alive. It is the engine of all exploration, all art, all love. To have everything answered is to be dead. To have a question that resonates in your very core is to be vitally, painfully, wonderfully human. Your echo is your compass. It points toward what you truly care about, what you truly fear, what you truly desire. The things worth caring about are always shrouded in mystery. They always contain an element of the unanswerable. So tonight, instead of seeking an answer, try listening for the question. Don't try to solve it. Just let it be. Let it resonate. Feel its weight, its texture, its ache. That ache is not a wound. It is the signature of your soul. It is the evidence that you are more than a collection of data points and productive outputs. You are a living mystery, and the echo is your song. And if we can learn to sit with that question, to make a companion of our uncertainty, we begin to forge a new kind of strength. A strength that doesn't come from knowing, but from a profound and willing not knowing. This strength allows us to perform the most radical, the most quietly powerful act imaginable in a world screaming for our attention. Chapter 9 is the greatest rebellion of our time. Simply to sit with a thought, undistracted, until it blossoms. Consider the sheer brute force of will it requires today to simply do nothing. To not reach, to not check, to not scroll, to let a single thought land in the garden of your mind, and to just tend to it. To water it with your attention, to protect it from the weeds of distraction, to simply sit with it in the sunshine and the rain of your own consciousness until it unfolds its petals and reveals its hidden color. In an economy built on seizing your attention, on fracturing it into a million scattered pieces, this act of sustained, undivided focus is not just focus, it is defiance. It is a quiet insurrection. Is it possible, then, that the greatest rebellion available to us now is not a loud protest in the streets, but the deeply private, immensely powerful act of seeing a single thought through to its natural conclusion. We live in the attention economy, and that means your consciousness is the new territory to be colonized. Every ping, every banner ad, every auto-playing video is a claim staked on a piece of your mental real estate. They don't want your money first. They want your attention. Because where attention goes, everything else follows. This creates a psyche that is perpetually lateral. We skim across the surface of 1,000 ideas, 100 opinions, a dozen emotions, but we never dive deep into any one of them. We become wide and shallow. We know a little about everything and a lot about nothing, especially ourselves. This is by design. A distracted population is a compliant population. It is a population that consumes endlessly to fill a hole it doesn't have the attention span to even identify. To resist this is to perform a radical act of reclamation. It is to take back your inner sovereignty when you choose to sit with a single thought, be it a memory, a problem, a line of poetry, a regret, and you refuse to be pulled away. You are declaring that your inner world is your own. You are building a fortress of solitude, not with walls, but with concentration. This is what the philosopher Byung-Chul Han might call a negativity against the brutal positivity of the digital swarm. You are saying no to the 1,000 shallow yeses that the world demands of you. This is not passive, it is intensely active. It is the mental equivalent of holding a perfect, powerful stance while chaos whirls around you. It is the discipline of the deep. Think of it as the intellectual equivalent of a master craftsman sharpening a single blade. He is not multitasking. He is not listening to a podcast. His entire world has narrowed to the feel of the whetstone on steel, the sound of the scrape, the emerging gleam along the edge. He is in a deep, intimate dialogue with the metal and his own intention. This is a form of meditation. It is a form of prayer. It is how we add value and meaning to our own existence. By giving a thing our full attention, we confer importance upon it, and in doing so, we assert our own importance as conscious beings, not just nodes in a network. This takes immense courage because it forces a confrontation with the self. Distraction is the needle that delivers the anesthetic. When you turn off the anesthesia, you start to feel everything. The boredom we spoke of earlier returns. The echo of your unanswered question grows louder. The complexity of a single thought reveals itself. A simple memory, if held long enough, can unfold into a universe of feeling, of context, of meaning you had glossed over 1,000 times before. This is the blossoming. It is the reward for your bravery. The thought is no longer just a thought. It becomes an experience. It becomes integrated. It becomes a part of the tapestry of you. In a world that demands we shine, that measures us by our visibility and our velocity, the act of disappearing into the depth of your own mind is a supreme act of power. It is the power of the seed underground, gathering strength in the dark, unconcerned with the noise above. It is the power of the samurai in the moment before the strike, his entire universe condensed into a single, perfect intention. He is not doing, he is being. And in that being, he is more powerful than any flurry of action. So tonight, as the world outside your window sleeps, try it. Let a thought find you. It might be a fragment of a dream from last night, a line from a book you read years ago, a look on someone's face you can't forget. Don't chase it, don't force it. Just invite it in. And then sight with it. Don't rush to understand it or solve it or post about it. Just hold it. Be undistracted. Be present with it as you would with an old friend who has finally arrived after a long journey. See what it has to say. See what it becomes in the quiet, patient sanctuary of your attention. In doing so, you are not just thinking, you are rebelling. You are reclaiming the deepest, most quiet, most powerful part of what it means to be human. You are coming home, and that is a story worth listening to in the gentle dark. Chapter 10. What if the pain you're numbing is the very thread you need to find your way back? There is a silence that is not empty. It is not the silence of absence, of a room after everyone has left. That silence echoes with what is missing. No. There is another kind. The silence of a deep forest, where the air is so still it feels like a presence. The silence at the heart of a flame, where the fire simply is, without crackle or protest. This is the silence we have forgotten how to hear. We have paved it over with 1,000 notifications, a ceaseless stream of content, a hum of our own making. We have, as the philosopher Byung-Chul Han suggests, traded the quiet dignity of sorrow for the frantic, smiling tyranny of positivity. But I want you to consider, tonight, in this quiet space between waking and sleep, what if that H you're so diligently scrolling past, that low-grade hum of unease you're trying to outrun with another podcast, another task, another hit of dopamine, what if that isn't the enemy? What if it's a signal, a thread, gossamer thin, leading you out of the labyrinth you built for yourself? We live in an age that worships at the altar of the pain-free. Discomfort is a glitch to be patched, a problem to be solved. Sadness is a flaw in the algorithm of our perfect lives. So we anesthetize, we optimize, we smooth out every rough edge until our lives resemble a perfectly curated gallery, all clean lines and pleasant muted colors. But in doing so, we smooth away ourselves. Because a life without friction is a life without traction. You cannot gain purchase on a glass surface. You can only slide across it, faster and faster, going nowhere. Think of an old wooden handrail worn smooth by generations of palms. That smoothness is earned. It is a record of every hand that passed that way, every journey taken. It tells a story of use, of friction, of life lived. Now imagine a handrail made of polished chrome. It is cold, it is sterile. It rejects the imprint of your hand the moment you lift it away. It has no story to tell. This is the choice we are making every day. Are we sanding ourselves down to be frictionless, efficient, and pain-free? Or are we allowing ourselves to be worn into something unique, something with a history etched into our very grain? That feeling you're avoiding, that loneliness, that frustration, that quiet sense of despair when you put the phone down and the room is just a room. That is the grain of your own soul. It is the friction of your authentic self rubbing against the polished chrome walls of the world it did not choose. It is not something to be silenced. It is something to be listened to. It is the part of you that is still real, still alive, still capable of feeling the profound depth of what it means to be human in a world that asks you to be a machine. To feel pain is to know you have a boundary that has been crossed. To feel sorrow is to know you have loved something that is now gone. These are not system errors. They are features of a deep and meaningful operating system. They are the coordinates of your humanity. By numbing them, you are not solving a problem. You are deleting the map. You are severing the thread. And without that thread, you will wander forever in a bright, colorful, endlessly stimulating maze of your own making, wondering why you never seem to arrive anywhere that feels like home. So tonight, as the world outside grows quiet, I invite you to do something radical. Drop the thread of distraction. Just for a moment. Let the phone screen go dark. Let the podcast end. And just listen to the hum in your own chest, to the weight of the day on your shoulders. Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it. Just acknowledge it. Ah, there you are. I feel you. That is all. In that simple, courageous act of non-resistance, you begin to reclaim the territory of your own soul. You begin to hear the silence that is not empty, but full of a truth you have been too busy to hear. And in that truth, you might just find your way back. And as you sit with that truth, you might begin to notice not just the feelings within, but the very texture of the world around you. The things we've been taught to see as flaws